Hi, Zizaran here with another Diablo 4 video, and this is going to be about the level 100 push we did. We did manage to get first level 100 on hardcore. We got Karn pushed to first level 100, Noogie as the second.
Oh, conduit! Oh, there it is! Oh! There it is! The W! The W!
And then me and Steel had a joint third. World first Sorc together. Oh!
Okay, that was sick. That was actually sick.
That was perfect.
That was actually awesome.
That was so
Okay.
good. Joint level 100, dude.
There it is.
Before the race started, we had talked about who was going to get first Sorc, and Steel really wanted me to have it. But I really wanted him to have it. So what we ended up doing was we got our XP as close as possible. We leveled up on basically the same monster. I think server-wise, he did actually hit it first, which is great. But it was a really cool idea that we were standing next to each other and leveled up at the same time. And it was just really nice. So we did manage to get the top 4. The plan was obviously always to push Karn to first level 100, because push come to shove, he's the only one of us that can push for 60 hours without sleeping. And we really wanted to capitalize on that if we needed it, because there was obviously a lot of competition for first level 100. Planning wise, like, none of us did have access to any of the early access beta things, so we're all eligible for the Lilith statue push. We did a lot of research. We looked up guides and videos by other people and all the content that was available. And Woody Joe did a little podcast with us where we could ask questions, and we did this publicly so everybody could benefit from it. And we had a lot of things we're curious about, and this was something that everybody could then use and benefit from the push. It was really cool. Huge congratulations to him getting the first solo level 100, which honestly is a huge achievement because it's way harder to push solo. Now, as far as how we decided what to play, Karn was going to play Barbarian no matter what, because he just loves melee and Bone Shatter and things like that, and he just wants to go Hulk smash. So it was just lucky that that was actually a good class, because, well, if it wasn't, he would still play it. Noogie is just super one with nature, so Druid was a really good fit for him, and that was really good. Noogie ended up being a large amount of damage, and so was Karn, and it was really good. Now, Steel loves RPing as a Sorc. He just loves Wizard in every game, and so do actually I. I was pretty happy to play anything else, but when we looked at Necro, we saw that I had a large distinctive lack of mobility skills, and it probably wouldn't be able to keep up with the rest of the group. And we were really worried, since none of us had played Rogue a lot in the level 25 betas, and when we did, it felt kind of squishy. And yeah, we were really worried that it was going to be too squishy, especially without having experienced it already. And we were like, you know what, Sorc has cheat death, etc. It should be pretty tanky. Like, obviously not as much as a Druid or a Barb, but there's things we can fall back on here. First, we were going to do that Steel was going to be an Ice Mage, and I was going to be a Fire Mage. Then we get Burning, we get Freeze, and we end up having a really good group. We did notice that Fire wasn't as good in a group and seems a lot better as a solo build. At least we couldn't figure it out to make it good enough for a group. And we ended up doing the exact same build for a while. And this was really cool because ice shards have this thing where if an enemy is frozen, you're automatically firing ice shards out towards it. And it doesn't matter that you're the one that froze it. So we were incredibly strong until like level 90-ish, where I would freeze a group and we would both it just auto blasts the group down. Then he would freeze a group. So we were just running and teleporting, and it was a really good pace. And I think just the way we had our group composition is a huge reason of why we won. And there was a lot of competition, a lot of people going for it. Ben's group being like very on our tails. It was like 30 minutes away from each other, and we ended up keeping that gap for a few hours. And then the other group was like, okay, you know what? We probably can't do this. And later on, we ended up getting Raymond of the Infinite, which is your teleport will pull things together. It sucks. And then it's easier to AoE them down. And we ended up split pushing with our group. So I would go with Karn and Steel would go with Noogie. And we would basically group all the enemies up together and freeze them. And then the other person would focus on doing the most damage. Sorc did end up falling off a lot on the damage. However, we did have sort of like an explosion ice shard thing. So as long as one dies, even if it's Karn killing it, as long as I'm getting... I think I do have to get the last hit. But either way, you notice that as soon as like the enemies were down and dying, they were all just like boom. Similar to Explosion Chest in Path of Exile. And this ended up being a huge deciding factor in why we won, because we could push a dungeon and we could do 2 sides at the same time. A really strong 3-man would probably be stronger because there are dungeons that have 3 different branches. So if you're just all clearing one branch each, well, you get the full XP off the entire dungeon, right? It's dungeon-wide XP, which I actually don't like. I think it should be 2 screens or something. It's a little silly that you can be like a kilometer away from somebody else and get full XP, but it is what it is. Are you looking for a PC for the upcoming year? We're having the golden age of ARPG coming up on us and a lot of new games coming out. If you're looking for a new PC, the Horizon line offers a great PC for the everyday gamer. Then you have the Voyager line for content creators and people really looking for a top-of-the-line PC. But while the logo might give you a hard time, the PCs will not. If you're looking for pre-built PCs, I'm using one myself. They've been really great so far. Can't go wrong with this one. Give yourself an edge for the upcoming year of game releases by heading over to starforgesystems.com and grab one of the best PCs in the universe. And then yeah, Noogie was playing Cocaine Bear. It was just slamming everything, doing crazy amounts of damage, and Karn was playing a spin to win Barb, and yeah, it ended up being a really good combo. Now, push-wise, I can talk a little bit about what we did. First, we tried doing the Sacred and Nightmare sigils and stuff like that, and that was really fun. It was a little bit oppressive. There's like so many on-death effects and stuff, so we were basically screaming like, bears, bears, fire explosion, bears, 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 run. And there's like, yeah, the floor is lava when you're doing these. And it was really fun. I really, really enjoyed it. I think this is the way you should push to level 100 and would be a lot better than what we ended up doing, because we heard that the softcore group and the other group that we were competing against were now just spamming reset dungeons. And first we were doing, I think, at this dungeon, which looked a lot better. I'm going to pull some numbers out of my ass here to give an example of how good it was. But let's say if the Nightmare Dungeons was, let's say, 20 million XP per hour, then doing this dungeon was maybe 40 million XP per hour. We were just running through the early part of the dungeon and then resetting and killing a big bunch of elites. And I probably had more elites than it should, and it looked pretty crazy. It was also miserable to do because you didn't get to play for very long before you had to reset. Now, this has actually been nerfed, but even almost a full day before it got nerfed, we switched to another dungeon, which is here. So we switched to this dungeon, and this looked more like a regular gameplay. And if the other dungeon was 40 million XP per hour, this was something like 60 or 70. And it was really nice because it looked more like regular gameplay. And even though it was like almost twice as good, it caused a lot less abuse because the other dungeon just looked better and this dungeon was better. So what made Champions Demise so much better? Well, it was the fact that it's a very large dungeon and we could split our group into 2 and farm multiple parts of the dungeon at the same time. So if we were able to have like 2-1-1 or something, that would probably be better. But we weren't really strong enough to solo all 3 branches at the same time. So that's what we ended up doing, and we were just resetting this dungeon. Now, a big problem here, in my opinion, is the fact that the dungeon scales with you all the way to level 95. That means that there's no reason to do the Sacred Sigil things if all you want is level 100. Now, some people have said that resetting a dungeon is an exploit, but obviously this is very, very common for every single RPG, Diablo 2, Diablo 3, Sacred, Torchlight, Path of Exile, etc. This is a very common ARPG feature. And in this game, Diablo 4, you could either remake your party or you can relog. Now, let's say that resetting a dungeon wouldn't be a thing. Let's say that you could only do a dungeon every 5 minutes. Well, you can see how close the next dungeon is here, and this is a decent one as well. So worst case scenario, you would just run here, and you don't have any downtime here either, because one person just starts running before this dungeon is done, and then the other people just teleport to him. So the big problem here, and I do have a video that I'm making about scaling and why I think it's a bad thing past a certain level. I think if it's scaled and stopped at 80, then you would actually have to do the Sacred Nightmare Sigils, which is obviously a lot better. It makes a lot more sense, and they're a lot more dangerous. And it's really fun because scaling was the #1 thing I was worried about in all my videos before Diablo 4 came out. And I said, I really hope that it stops scaling at some level. And for those that are watching during the push, you probably saw that because Nightmare Sigils started at 73, I kept saying, it's not gonna, like, dungeons, the normal world, etc., it's gonna stop at 73. And Steel was like, I'm pretty sure it just keeps on scaling with us. And I'm like, there's no way. That would make no sense because there will then be no reason to do Nightmare Sigils. And they were like, yeah, you're right, but it's it's probably going to keep scaling. So a little bit sad about that, and definitely something I hope they change, because I think it would be a lot more beneficial to the game if Nightmare Sigils are the main push. Hell Tides could also scale all the way to level 100, but in World Tier 3, it should just scale to 70 or something as well, especially Elites, because Elites, even if you're in World Tier 1, scale up to 105. So that was pretty much it. I had an absolute blast pushing with the boys, and just really, really cool. Like, this is, yeah, just really something I'm looking forward to doing each time. I really do wish that there was a solo ladder, like a SSF mode, like Path of Exile has. For those that know me from Path of Exile, that's obviously my preferred playstyle. I think solo ladder is always a lot better, because then you can't get any outside help, and it just becomes a really more interesting race. And I do hope Diablo 4 gets that in the future. Even outside of ladder, just an SSF mode would be really cool. That way you can't get boosted, etc. Had so much fun pushing, and really looking to push and race every Diablo 4 season. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Thank you so much for the support. Sub if you liked the video. Also remember, you can gift 2 subs on Twitch to get a mount, and I am in the program, so if you do want to support, that is a way to do that. Either way, love you guys. Thank you so much. More importantly, try to die less than I do.